I'm Lisa Clark. I'm president of the Michigan Energy Innovation Business Council, and thank you so much for being here tonight. These events are just a ton of work, and I got to tell you, it's a real relief to actually start because that means that we're almost to the end. So really excited to have you. So Michigan EIBC is the business voice of the advanced energy in Michigan, and we represent over 100 advanced energy companies covering sectors from solar and wind to biomass, combined heat and power, transportation and mobility, to advanced lighting, demand response, and energy efficiency, and many more. Our mission is to grow Michigan's advanced energy economy by fostering opportunities for innovation and business growth and offering a united voice to create a business-friendly environment for advanced energy industry in Michigan. And those efforts are paying off. Across Michigan, we have 92,000 jobs in the clean energy sector, and growth in the clean energy employment has happened over the last year at nearly 3 times the rate of job growth in other sectors. Tonight we come together to celebrate the successes and innovations of the past year and the businesses and policymakers that work to make those accomplishments happen. Michigan's advanced energy industry is growing and thriving. Our efforts at EIBC would not be possible without all of you, our members. Thank you for joining EIBC and for contributing your time and experiences and for being here tonight. The team at EIBC knows that it's not how many of you we serve, but how well we serve each of you. I'd also like to thank the EIBC team, Nicole Forward, EIBC's Director of Partnerships and Corporate Relations, and Caitlin Beyer, our Programs Manager. Without them, nothing would have happened tonight, I absolutely promise you. Michigan EIBC relies on the guidance of our board, and I'm thrilled to have so many board members in attendance here tonight. You'll hear from some of them over the course of the evening, but for a moment, would all of our board members please stand and be recognized? Great. Apparently we've got a board table over here. I don't know how that happens, but it's good company, so it's okay. And last but not least, I'd like to thank the sponsors of tonight's gala. At the megawatt level, Consumers Energy, Cypress Creek, and ITC. At the kilowatt level, Clear Results and Invenergy. And our table sponsors tonight are numerous: Apex Clean Energy, Dykema, Five Lakes Energy, Hemlock Semiconductor, Innovators Solar, the Michigan Agency for Energy Office, Michigan CAT, NextEra Energy, Ranger Power, Varnum, Veolia Energy, and Warner, Norcross, and Judd. Please join me in thanking our sponsors for their generosity and support. So soon after our gala last year, Governor Snyder signed new energy legislation into law that makes sweeping changes to Michigan's energy system. Michigan EIBC members were engaged throughout that legislative process and are responsible for many of the positive aspects of the law. Since the law's enactment, we've continued to highlight industry priorities and to make sure that the law is implemented in the best way possible and in a way that works to grow Michigan's advanced energy economy. Michigan EIBC and its members are engaged in the Public Service Commission on the IRP design, new distributed generation, green pricing program design, and much, much more, much, much more. There's so much going on at the Public Service Commission. Your voices, the voices of the advanced energy industry, bring a unique perspective to those issues and discussions. Michigan EIBC has also been involved in the future of mobility in Michigan. Our annual Michigan Energy Futures Conference in September brought together regulators, utilities, companies, and thought leaders to talk about advanced mobility and the electrification and automation of transportation. We heard loud and clear that Michigan businesses are ready to lead the way on mobility issues. The Michigan Public Service Commission also recently held a technical conference on advanced fuel vehicles. Michigan EIBC and its members participated in that conference and are now helping the Commission consider what the future looks like for utilities and regulators in the automated and electrified vehicle space. As many of you know, Michigan EIBC has also launched a number of new sector-focused initiatives this year. We're working with the solar industry to address some of the taxation and zoning challenges they're facing. We're working with the wind industry to inform legislators. And we're working with corporate purchasers to improve green power pricing programs and enable them to source more of their electricity from renewables. There's a lot more work to do and many challenges to address in the coming year. Although I can't promise we'll win all of the battles, I can promise that EIBC will represent advanced energy businesses and their interests at the legislature and the Michigan Public Service Commission. So thank you again to our members, our board, the Michigan EIBC team, and tonight's sponsors, as none of this would have been possible without you. And now it's my great pleasure to bring you a video message from Governor Snyder. Although the governor wasn't able to be here tonight, he's been a champion for the advanced energy industry and energy waste reduction, and was gracious enough to record this message for tonight's event.
Good evening and welcome to the Michigan Energy Innovators Gala. I want to thank the Michigan Energy Innovation Business Council for hosting tonight's event. This is a wonderful way to celebrate the businesses and public officials driving Michigan's advanced energy industry forward. The companies and public officials being recognized tonight have gone above and beyond to make advanced technology available today to help our state meet its energy needs, protect the environment, and save ratepayers money on their energy bills. These winners are also helping to grow Michigan's advanced energy economy. Thank you for all your hard work and have a great evening.
Hi, my name is Lauren Bigelow. I'm the CEO of the Growth Capital Network, and I'm also the chair of the board of the EIBC. And I started my engagement with the organization 5 years ago when I was the interim president, and it was kind of a small gathering of folks in the energy industry. Now, the energy industry in Michigan wasn't as broad as it is today, but still, we are now up over 100 members across the state of Michigan, and there's 150 people in this ballroom, and every year we have to get another part of the ballroom here in the Kellogg Center, which is fantastic. So, not only is the organization growing, but the depth of the field in the state of Michigan is really astounding to me. So 10 years ago when I was with the Clean Tech Group, there was very little going on here, so it's fantastic to see you all in this room tonight. It's also my privilege to introduce Val Brader. And as the executive director for the State Energy Agency, Val has played a really key role in the development of the new energy legislation that was passed last year and signed by the governor into law. So she was an advocate at every single level, talking to energy companies, environmental groups, university groups, like really bringing together a coalition of people of very diffuse ideas and very disparate views, really bringing them together so that we got compromise legislation that honestly just didn't get passed in a lot of other states in the Midwest. So very, very proud of our state and thrilled to have Valerie working for us. So she started she started working with the state after her tenure at Bodman in 2011, and she started as a senior advisor to Governor Snyder before she came with the agency, and she's had a lot of other hats on in the meantime. So she's had fun with the Detroit bankruptcy and the Flint water crisis, and so in addition to her fantastic work on energy, she's also brought those her skills as a negotiator and her legal brain to the fore of some really sticky, vexing problems in our state. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Val Brader.
Thanks for having me here tonight. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. There's nothing like passing comprehensive energy legislation to let you meet a lot of people and even remember many of them. So it's been really great. And also to meet new people with new technologies that are interesting and solving problems. I've worked on, in some cases, in past careers with military and boats and different new energy technologies that could work for lighter engines. I was laughing because I was remembering one of the first things I ever did when I was trying to bring people together and didn't really have any negotiating skills yet, as was apparent from the outcome, was when the EPA and the DoD were arguing about whether a more energy efficient engine could get installed on boats that they use to catch drug runners. And the EPA really was saying that the DoD wasn't doing enough to evaluate it, and the engine was significantly heavier. And the Coast Guard guy explained that really that weight was going to make their chasing of the drug runners' boats much less effective. And the EPA asked him if he had any data on the number of boats he wouldn't catch. And he didn't actually pull out his weapon at that point, which was about my only success of that particular meeting. And it's funny because just tonight I'm hearing about a technology that might help to make boat engines better able to generate power, coupled with some new technologies that would be lighter, add to that speed, let you run without that noise, lots of things. So the exciting thing about being in a room like this is that problems that have bedeviled Michigan or the nation for years, there are people who are working on them, and every day and every way we're seeing new innovation. It's a really exciting time to be there, and of course the lawyers did not want to miss out, and that's why we passed 240 pages of new energy legislation, so we could be innovative too. And what has been really wonderful has been working with so many partners to implement it with a really diverse group of voices. When it actually all came out and we started looking at the amount of work we had signed up for, you have that moment of like, wow, that's a lot. And we also realized that we weren't the only ones looking at that. There were a lot of people in this room who really care about energy, who really care about lots of different parts of the energy legislation, but really not all of them probably. And it really became something where we wanted to make sure people had the ability to interact, that we weren't creating situations where there were all the deadlines all at the same time or all the meetings all at the same time, and how to do that. And we worked really hard to set that up, and there's some folks in this room from commission leadership, from outside, that really helped with these kind of thoughts. And understanding that there are always, with this many controversial and difficult issues in a compromise piece of legislation, going to be a lot to work through. One thing I want to thank is so many people in this room for spending the time to do that, and even those who can't come to the commission for using that website to be able to give impactful information that has been helpful in a whole host of things, from the development of various scenarios that will have to be modeled for integrated resource planning, to figuring out different options for what businesses are looking at. We completed recently a survey of the demand response potential in Michigan, and many businesses volunteered to be interviewed for that, which is very, very helpful, because what we know about Michigan is that we have some unique challenges and we have some challenges that are common that other states and other places have. And being able both to understand what may be useful in other places is really important, but also having people commit to thinking about Michigan's unique situations and how we best solve those and how we work together for those is really valuable. And having been in the private sector, I don't underestimate the amount of effort it takes to agree to get interviewed for a government survey about various ways you might want to have various programs work, et cetera. It sometimes takes one of your most sophisticated employees out of an hour they could be spending doing something else. And I think that I personally have found the results to be very, very helpful already in sort of thinking through what people want, what sounds like a good idea, but it turns out no one's all that interested in. And I just can't thank folks enough, because those kind of efforts mean that we spend our time working on stuff that makes a difference for the businesses and makes it different for energy innovations, and we don't spend our time putting something into place that sounded good, but it turns out no one actually wanted. So I just want to say, as I look around the room, there are so many of you that I know have spent time and effort on that, and it is so appreciated in so many areas when you do that. And I also just want to say one thing that I've really appreciated about the EIBC and kind of the interesting coalition of folks who come together around this is an appreciation for often that these issues are hard, and it might not be that someone who doesn't agree with you is evil and, a creature of whatever special interest is your particular bogeyman. To be honest, I just think in modern politics there's a lot of that, and that's unfortunately even among the public, I think, becoming the initial assumption. And, as someone who gets to sit through many public meetings where, I haven't had to arrest anyone or anything, so it must be going well. It is always helpful and refreshing and useful to have a forum that brings together a diverse group of voices, that recognizes why many of the things that aren't being done are a little bit harder or what the barriers are, and provides constructive feedback on how they could be done. And does that recognizing often what they are and trying to work through the issues. And I just want to say that that's something that is incredibly valuable. Work like that is the reason you could get a bill that would get such overwhelming bipartisan support. A lot of bills that passed around the same time as Michigan's energy legislation nationally, I think have gotten more attention. And I just want to say, for all the folks who worked in this room, I don't know any other state that had a Republican-controlled legislature in both chambers and governor that managed to pass comprehensive energy reform anywhere. And it wasn't because we were the only ones trying it. I think we managed to pass it with overwhelming support from both parties, with overwhelming support in both chambers, with a list so long for the signing ceremony that the legislative affairs team got mad at me. When I was like, no, really, we have to put one more person. They'll fit. It really just says something that so many people spent so much time and effort and came together, and that it didn't stop at the signing ceremony, that it's continued and people are continuing to work and try to figure these tough issues out together. And again, we're not expecting everyone to agree all the time by any means, but I've so appreciated the folks who recognize these can be tough, and hey, if it isn't going to work this way, let's see if we can find another way, and try to think through those together in a way that can bring Michigan forward. And one of the things that really also made the legislation possible was the amount of innovation that had occurred in the energy space. When the ideas of RPSs and things first came to be, renewables were more expensive than traditional generation, just unquestionably. And that changed fast. And the fact that you weren't sort of fighting that those were going in the same direction, that you had a cleaner fuel in natural gas that ramped well, being a technology that was no longer kind of the wildly expensive cousin, but, something that was truly competitive and in fact is being disruptive in a lot of ways to our current generation mix. That actually opened up a world of possibilities. And I think one of the things that folks who work just in public policy don't often appreciate is what a technology can do to make something that was politically impossible politically possible. And that the next and the next and the next innovations are what makes that true. And also that customer demands are a huge factor. If you've got all business saying we only want one thing and it is conflicting with what all the environmentalists want, then it's just a battle of whether the environmentalists control a particular thing or the business interests do, and it's not very stable, and you go back and forth. When you have business trends that are pushing in the same way as environmental trends that can improve reliability, that these things come together, that's when you really get an amazing ability to leap forward. And so to have innovators and technologists here talking to folks who do all sorts of different energy things and folks who really know the public policy, that's what makes evenings like this really special. And that's what makes many of the people who are award winners from the EIBC so special, is that in all sorts of different areas that energy touches, whether it's talent, whether it's the public side of life, whether it's the technology and the innovators, whether it's businesses who have really figured out a way to give something to their customers in a new way, or in a cheaper way, or a better way, or in the best of all worlds, all three. You really open all kinds of possibilities to solve problems that are just not solvable otherwise. And that's something really special. I think Michigan has shown the nation how you solve something that looked unsolvable together, how you work through it, how you put that together. And that's due both to some really fabulous leadership on the public side, but also to a lot of really fabulous leadership on the private side, and on trying to come together and bring those interests together and find something that really works for us. And it's something that I think we need even more examples of, and I know the people in this room continue to do every day as we work through those 240 pages and make them live. And also as we work through all the other issues that it turns out continue to arise, because even in 240 pages, you can't do everything, especially in a world that's changing so much. And so I just want to express a true heartfelt thanks to all of those who do that. And also, I'm going to be a little bit selfish here and say just how excited I am to see Sally Tallberg selected as your Public Official of the Year. I've had the joy of working with Sally on the commission, and really from her earliest days when she took her oath and like 2 minutes later I was like, there are 7 things I have to tell you. and you should take notes. Which you don't normally have to tell Sally because she's kind of a detail person. If you haven't noticed that, then you haven't paid any attention. To have someone who really innovated at Michigan Saves and made that a nationwide leader and put Michigan on the map to be able to lead in energy waste reduction, to have someone who could actually answer the governor's questions on the spot about financing energy waste reduction was a personal gift from heaven. To have someone who really is committed to making her staff feel valued and their contributions and making us all better at the same time, to someone who has set a real example of collaborative leadership among the commissioners themselves and throughout the administration, and someone who is always trying to be constructive, who works unbelievably hard and usually tries to give the credit to everyone else. I just want to say on a personal level, thanks for honoring Sally, because it's really awesome and she deserves it, and she's gonna kill me later for having said all that. But thank you for doing that, because it is really nice when people who do all that get recognized for it, and when you have such an exceptional leader get recognized by so many of you that work with her every day. So thanks so much for having me. Enjoy this evening, enjoy each other, and solve some big problem here tonight. I'm sure we'll need it. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much, Valerie. I feel like I don't even have to say anything nice about Sally. No, I'm just kidding. We'll do that later. But thanks for stealing all my lines. So it's okay.
I'm Kevin Borgia. I'm with Cypress Creek Renewables. We are a solar energy developer working on utility-scale solar projects. We're operating currently in 8 states and hopefully soon building some projects here in Michigan. So more than any other time in our lifetimes, Washington's divided. It's combative. Dialogue between parties is really fallen apart. It's difficult. Everyone has their own set of facts, and partisanship is really just tribalism at this point. So meanwhile, amidst this environment, the solar industry has really come into its own. It's come into the mainstream. The component costs have fallen dramatically. We're reaching grid parity in many markets. Utilities and corporate buyers are increasingly buying renewables, not just to meet their marketing goals or hit their corporate sustainability reports, but because it makes economic sense. So it's in this environment of challenge and opportunity that the industry really needs leadership at the national level. We need someone that can kind of cut through the beltway noise and the hyperbolic media and communicate a clear message that solar is creating jobs, that we're cost effective, and that we're saving consumers money across the country. And so our next speaker really delivers that leadership for the industry. Abby Ross Hopper is the president and CEO of the Solar Energy Industries Association, which is the national trade group for the solar industry. Before joining SEIA, Abby was director of the Department of Interior's Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, or BOEM. She really dug into the complex and often conflicting aspects of oceanic energy policy. I'm sure she's happy to elaborate on that sometime. Previous to that, she was director of the Maryland Energy Administration, where she was pivotal in ensuring passage of the Maryland Offshore Wind Energy Act. A lawyer by training, she also served as energy advisor to Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley and in a variety of energy regulatory roles, plus 9 years in private law practice. So her career has really given her the right experience, both politically and on the policy side, to really lead the industry. And also, according to my DC colleagues, she, despite having grown up in the DC suburbs, she's a huge country music fan. And if you're real nice to her tonight, maybe she'll give you her rendition of Proud to Be an American, which I hear is fantastic. So it's my honor to introduce Abby Ross Hopper.
It was very kind. It was kind, but also very true. I really actually do love country music. And I love to sing, and his colleague and I were at an event, actually the Christian Coalition dinner, and there was great music, and I couldn't help myself. His colleague was not amused by my singing, but I was totally amused. So, good evening, how are you? Good, you all feeling good? You ready? 7:30 at night on a Wednesday. Come on, let's go. It's Thursday. Oh my gosh, it's Thursday! Woo! That's my week for you. So it's, no, I don't know what state I'm in. No, I'm really glad to be here in the great state of Michigan. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for that great introduction. I'm really happy to be here. I've never been to Lansing before, so it's an honor to be here. I did have the great privilege this afternoon of, in the rain, going to visit the largest solar carport in North America and the Western Hemisphere. Yes. So my friends at Innovators Solar took me on a great tour, which I quickly tweeted about, of course, because I tweet everything. So thank you. Congratulations on your accomplishment, and thank you for hosting me. But it's really exciting. One of the best parts of my job is that I get to go all over this incredible country of ours and see the innovation and the ingenuity and the risk that companies are taking, that utilities are taking, that financiers are taking, and it's just an honor and a privilege. So, and it's a necessary medicine to spending a lot of my time in Washington, D.C. So it's always good to be home, but it's always good to be out on the road. So thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm going to walk through a couple of things, but before I do that, I get that this isn't all about solar. So tell me by a show of hands, who's in the solar business here? All right. Who's in the wind business? All right, energy efficiency. EVs. All right, traditional utilities. I don't know what I mean by the word traditional, but traditional utilities. All right, welcome. What have I left out? What are you? Pace guy. How many pace people are there here? All right, we got some pace. Who else did I leave out? Hydro. Oh my gosh, hydro. Where are you? Show me your hands. All right, how about you? Right there. Next era. Battery storage. Excellent. Biomass. All right. So, anaerobic. Oh my gosh. You have quite a coalition here. So I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in solar. But I want to sort of preface my remarks by really talking about the interconnectedness of all of these things that we've talked about, right? That this is, I think one of the things I bring to this role, and I've only had this role since January, the president and I started right at the same time, so it's really easy for me to know exactly how long I've had the job. But I come from a pretty diverse energy background, so I did a ton of work with our electric distribution utilities when I worked with my governor, thinking about rate design and how best to incent investment in reliability and resiliency. I worked with the natural gas industry on perhaps permitting an export facility in the great state of Maryland. I worked with the nukes. We permitted a third nuke in Maryland. It didn't get built, but we permitted it at the state side, and obviously offshore wind and renewable energy. The BOEM is actually the agency, the one I led is the agency that does all oil and gas offshore. So Gulf of Mexico, Alaska, that's where I spent the last 2 years of my life. So I have a pretty deep appreciation for kind of the interconnectedness and the complexity of the energy markets and energy industry. And I bring that with me to this. So I'm going to talk about solar, but it's solar kind of with an eye towards what does the energy, both the grid and the electric supply system, energy supply system of our future look like. At the end of 2016, we'd installed 47.1 gigawatts, which is enough to power 9.1 million homes. Our growth rate over the last 10 years, 68% growth rate, which is pretty amazing. Just in 2016, it was over 98%. And 260,000 people, Americans, employed in the solar industry. Every state in the union, every kind of piece along the supply chain, as you can imagine, we grew 17 times faster than the economy. And so we added more jobs. 1 in every 50 new jobs in the United States last year was a solar job. We employ more people than Google, Facebook, and Apple combined. And if you looked at the report that came out last week, the largest job creator in the world, and in the country, by percentage, is going to be a solar installer in the next 10 years. So when we talk about sort of messages that resonate across party lines, job creation is one of those. So that's why we talk so much about the jobs. I want to stop here, though, and just sort of point out what should be painfully obvious to all of you. Our industry is fairly homogenous. You know, I sort of joke, but it's true. When I'm the diverse person in the room, we're in trouble, right? I'm a super privileged white lady, and so I'm not really the face of diversity. And so we have embraced a really aggressive plan to both diversify our customer base and diversify our labor pool in the solar market. And I would encourage all of you to think about that. Think about it in your companies, your utilities, whatever groups you engage in. How do we engage more people of color, more women, to really reflect the diversity of our country? So I can talk about that for a long time. I won't, but I've never ever let an opportunity go by to discuss that. It took us about 20 years to get to 1 million solar rooftops. It's going to take us about 18 months to get to 2 million. So we are growing in an incredible way. Every quarter we put out numbers to show sort of where the solar industry is going, and these are national numbers through Q2 of 2017. As you can see, 2016 was a crazy year, and it's a crazy year for reasons that you all probably know, right? There was anticipation that the investment tax credit was going to end, and so folks were hurrying to get their projects in the ground. Even after it was extended at the end of 2015, there was still this incredible demand. And so that's why Q3 and Q4 of 2016 were so incredibly high. As you look across the sectors, you'll see that all continue to grow, although obviously residential is flattening out a bit. We can have a long conversation about why that's the case, but some of the reasons are around customer acquisition and sort of the challenge of customer acquisition on the DG side. One of the areas of real growth is community solar and making sure that those markets stay open, and that the utility scale projects, which obviously are the majority of the projects, were put in place at the end of 2016, continue in 2017, but there's a whole procurement cycle that happens. And so you'll see, as we look at how those have grown and how those continue to grow, we call 2017 we have a hangover, right? Like it's like, oh God, you wake up in the morning like, oh my gosh, what did I do? So 2017 is that year for us. So it's all those projects that were hurried to get in the ground in 2016. And then this procurement cycle, as I talked about, lots of utilities have procured what they needed and are in the process of doing that again, but these are installations. And so those pick up again in 2020. So 2019, we're back on the upswing. But and this is a big if no restrictive trade policy is put into place, we will triple the amount of solar in the next 5 years. So it's an incredible area of growth across this country. I want to talk a little bit about how that breaks out by the states, because SEIA is both we do national policy, and we're going to talk about some of that in a minute, but we also do state policy. States, we do it in a variety of ways, with relationships with affiliates, with direct advocacy on the ground, with lobbying in legislatures, and advocacy at regulatory commissions. So just to show you a little bit, one of our priorities is obviously to ensure that existing solar markets stay open and robust. And so we think a lot about net metering and what that means, and how we protect what we think is an incredibly important policy in incenting solar markets across the country. So as we look across the country today, by the end of this year, about 36 states will be at grid parity for rooftop solar. And obviously that depends on the net metering rate that is offered by those states. If net metering export rates are cut in half, then only a handful are made at grid parity. So that's an incredibly important tool that we have at our disposal to incent distributed generation. One of the things that I think about a lot, and I'm sure many of you think about a lot, is sort of the future of net metering and the sustainability of net metering. And so I am not one of those people who thinks we can net meter our way to 100%, and you might throw your dinner rolls at me for saying that, but I just don't think that's realistic. I think that as an industry, we have to have a mature and thoughtful transition and know kind of what makes sense, what can we do, what are we driving towards, and be willing to have that conversation. I think demand charges and fixed charges that some of our utility friends are trying to impose are not the best policy mechanisms. I think a more thoughtful and clear route so that customers and regulators and companies know where we're headed is a much more productive process. And so we're engaged in some of that work, as are others. But net metering remains a critically important part of what we do. Obviously, renewable portfolio standards are an important part of ensuring adoption of renewables kind of across the board. I was telling friends at dinner that one of the things that's really pretty incredible and that has been a pretty dramatic change is that by the end of 2016, about 2/3 of procurement was really just based on price. It had nothing to do with policy, right? It didn't matter what kind of electron you were delivering, whether it was a wind electron, a gas electron, a solar electron. It was a head-to-head price competition. In the world I live in Washington, where their sort of narratives get written, and they're not always true. One of the narratives that gets written is that, renewables, they just have those renewable portfolio standards, and so they're protected. They don't need any other kind of fair competition. That's not actually the case. And then obviously you all know in RPSs we mostly have to compete against hydro and biomass and anaerobic digestion and wind, sort of all of the other technologies. And so that's an important piece. Expanding RPSs will always be an important piece to us, but it's certainly not the only piece, and it's not politically feasible in lots of places. One of the policies I know it's important here in the great state of Michigan is PURPA. It's been helpful to incenting renewable generation in many states across the country, North Carolina being one of them. And defending PURPA at both the federal level, right, against, there's been bills introduced in Congress to either eviscerate it or remove it completely, and then efforts in various states across the country. And we think that PURPA is an incredibly important policy tool to incent generation and continue to defend it, and we'll continue to defend it. One of the other areas we work on a lot at the state level is about integration. And so this sort of talks about kind of how are we all working together to create a reliable and a resilient grid. As you know, that's kind of the key to all of this, both at the regulatory level and sort of the market level, and making sure there's market signals that allow sort of the attributes that all of these different technologies bring to the grid to be valued in an appropriate way. I have had the benefit of hearing Secretary Perry speak a couple of times and being in meetings with him recently, and it's an interesting conversation because I've been with him when he's talked about the benefit and importance of solar and wind, and then I've been with him when he's talked about kind of needing oil and gas as a hedge against national security interests. And so I'm not always sure exactly which message we're going to be delivered, but certainly the grid parity study that he asked his department to do was of great concern to us. We were incredibly active, so active that I got called into the Chief of Staff's office for my activism. But we had a really great long meeting, the head of AWEA and the head of SEIA, just with him, and sort of walk through all the data, right? All the data that the national labs have done, that the PJM had done, that the grid operators have done, and said, hey, listen, we need to be thoughtful and we need to plan, but we don't actually have a problem, right? We don't have a crisis on our hands. And so I thought actually the grid study that came out, it was fairly balanced and acknowledged the fact that it really was competition from natural gas that was causing some of the challenges. We all went along happily wondering when the next shoe would drop, and it did, right, with the proposed NOPR. And so we have continued to be really active at FERC around that. We've actually made history because we have filed comments with the American Petroleum Institute and the Natural Gas Association, which has never happened before. But they have, this administration has managed to galvanize unlikely allies in a way that I think has surprised them. But we will continue to have those conversations because we really believe strongly in the market and in the ability of solar to compete in the marketplace. So as we think about our state advocacy efforts, that kind of combines state and federal, but these are just a handful of the areas in which we're fighting. And I do say fighting fairly intentionally. Sometimes it does feel like a fight. But we're making sure that we're keeping electricity markets open so that we can compete. Looking at what's happening here in the great state of Michigan, I'm a good enough speaker that I will never going to come to your state and lecture you on what's happening here because that would be stupid. And I'm not that stupid. I can show you the data we have. I can show you what we think is happening in the Midwest, but you guys are the experts on your policy. As we see Michigan growing, it's going to grow incredible amounts over the next few years. And you can see it's growing across all market segments, so residential, commercial, and utility, and commercial and then utility scale. And so there's an incredible opportunity here to harness the power of solar. I think there's also an incredible opportunity to think about what are the other innovations that can partner with solar. And so you think about sort of what products can you offer consumers around solar and storage? What products can you offer consumers around microgrids and self-contained systems? What products can you offer that sort of integrate electric vehicle charging stations and solar, and how those batteries can work together to feed each other? So there's sort of an endless amount of opportunity. We think a lot about software systems and kind of what kind of software systems do we need to manage these products and these systems, and how do we integrate, and what kind of products are needed there. And so as I think about sort of the opportunity, I think about a business association like this and sort of where is the next thing. I think it's in all of those, right? It's in all of those. It is about a holistic energy system, more so than these different siloed technologies. But certainly, if you'll excuse the pun, the future is incredibly bright here in Michigan for solar power. And the same is true in the Midwest. So as you look at that, I don't know how we assign different colors to different states, so if you don't like your color, sorry. But you can see that this is where to be, right? This is the area of growth in the country. This is one of the most exciting places. And we think that that's going to just continue to grow. There you can see 2017 is sort of off the charts. 2016 was crazy, 2017 is even more. And then as we look forward, it just continues to go up. And so I would encourage you to keep innovating, keep thinking regionally, keep thinking about sort of best practices and how to continue to grow solar, and grow it in a way that is integrated with all of these other partners. One thing I would say is that especially as you look at utility scale, some of those others we looked at utility, commercial, industrial, and residential, is that on the utility scale, utilities are our partners, right? I think there's, I represent distributed generation, sort of commercial and industrial generation, and utility scale generation. That is a rather disparate set of stakeholders. And my opinion, my strong opinion, is that we need each other. We need each other for lots and lots of reasons. But most importantly, because we're going to build more and help consumers bring lower prices to them if we work together. And so to the utilities in the room, I would say keep reaching out to your solar friends, both on the utility scale side and the DG side. We can figure out models that work for both of us. Companies, I would say keep reaching out to the utility folks, because they actually operate the grid that we need to access. And so I would encourage you to build those relationships. It's gotten in some states fairly acrimonious. I don't think that's in the ratepayer's best interest. Certainly not in the solar company's best interest, and I don't think in the utility's best interest. So I would encourage you to continue to work collaboratively. I had a personally great experience in the great state of Maryland working collaboratively with what was Pepco and Exelon and First Energy. Now it's all Exelon. But great relationships when you're just an honest broker in getting deals done. Looking at what we've done in your great state, we recognize that Michigan is an area of growth in the solar industry, and so have created a Midwest committee and have identified, obviously, Michigan as a top priority. And we believe in partnerships. We don't think that we've invented the wheel, need to reinvent the wheel, or need to take credit for other people's work. And so we have strong relationships and partnerships. And the things we work on here, PURPA, obviously, I've heard a lot about that in the room tonight. Fair treatment for DG customers, I will always argue for that. And then including solar and utility planning process, right? Your customers want it, your regulators want it. It's important to do that. So that's kind of where we are on what's happening both broadly across the country and what's happening in the Midwest and what's happening in Michigan. Kind of if nothing else changed, it is an incredibly bright future, right? Like just grow, grow, grow. Last year, solar was the #1 source of new electricity generation in the entire country. We beat out wind, we beat out natural gas. It is an incredible story. But like most incredible stories, there's kind of an arc to the storyline. And so we are facing some pretty serious challenges right now. One, I'm going to talk about two of them. One a bit more dire than the other. But one of them is about the trade case. So if you've heard about the trade case, it is about a case that's pending at the International Trade Commission. And rather than just talk to you about it, which I will in a second, I'm going to show you a video that we did that I think does a good job of explaining, certainly from our perspective, what the concern is.
This job came as a blessing for my family, actually. Right after I started working, my husband was injured at UPS and hasn't been working due to his back injury. So having the opportunity to help my family by providing an income has just been awesome.
At first it was just a job, but then it turned into much more than just a job. It's a great industry, growing industry. I didn't realize how big it was till it came to our area.
I'm proud because I love my job. I love what I do here. And I thank them for trusting in me to be able to put the parts to the customer and that they will be done correctly.
The U.S. solar industry employs over 260,000 workers all across this country in a wide variety of jobs, everything from manufacturing to installation to banking to finance. One of the most interesting parts is that 67% of the jobs in the solar market don't require a bachelor's degree. And so that makes this industry accessible to so many of our fellow Americans. And that's a really important element of solar.
It's the fact that the industry has been able to drive down prices that is fueling the growth in the industry and fueling the growth of Schletter. If the prices go up artificially because of these tariffs to protect two very small companies, then we're going to lose business, we're going to lose employees, and it could be half of our employees that end up being unemployed as a result of it.
It's really important to me because of my family. I have 2 kids at home. Basically, they rely on this every single day for me. I grew on it. This is all I know. I mean, I have a little remodeling before this experience, but I just love what I do.
So the solar industry employs 260,000. That does not include these 3 to 5 times that number of jobs that provide services and provide other products to companies like Schletter. So it's a huge impact on the U.S. economy. And I know this administration is all about creating jobs, and we are one of the leading industries creating those jobs. And so to have this trade case, if it's successful, it would be disastrous to the country in terms of employees, not only just Schletter, but many others, which is why we've banded with our fellow racking and tracking companies to come out formally in opposition to this trade case.
When we first heard about the trade case at the sites, everybody immediately started signing letters to their congressmen and women to let them know how important these jobs are, not only to the solar industry, but local communities.
This case has been described as a case about solar manufacturing. But let me tell you the real facts about solar manufacturing here in the United States. There are 38,000 Americans, over 600 companies here that are manufacturing. Those are the people whose jobs are at risk. Those are the people whose livelihoods are at risk. And those are the people that we are speaking up for. That is why this 201 petition should not go forward.
It's obvious it's a disaster for Standard Solar as a company, but also for our employees. I mean, we're not going to be able to maintain the workforce that we have now if we're not going to have the business that we have now and the business that's growing right now.
You know, if my job were to be impacted in this, you know, we would certainly have some tough decisions to make. Again, as there was in the recession of 2008, there would be thousands of workers just like me, unemployed, looking for the same jobs, looking for the same positions throughout the region.
The solar story is an American success story. We have built this incredible industry from the ground up using U.S. technology and U.S. innovation, and we need to protect that, protect those employees, and make sure that those folks can keep working here in the United States. I said I wasn't going to talk to you, but I forgot I was in the video, so I did talk to you. So this is the ITC case, the solar tariff case, the Suniva and Solar World case, whatever you want to call it. But it was filed. This is the timeline in May. 2 companies are asking for tariffs. We are pretty far along in the timeline now. The president's the ultimate decision maker. He will make a decision in January, likely. And we obviously have a strong opinion about why it's not a good idea to impose solar tariffs, well, basically tariffs on solar panels coming into the United States from any country. You can see, that the really exciting lines I showed you earlier about the tripling of solar installations across the country. They are at risk if these solar tariffs get imposed. At the level of tariffs that the companies have requested, about 88,000 jobs overall would be lost, which is about 1/3 of the solar industry. So it's incredibly important. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't acknowledge that this is part of a larger play, I would say, with regard to kind of this ongoing tariff conversation. The folks here from Hemlock and their colleagues can tell you more about the solar tariffs that are on Chinese and Taiwanese, the countervailing tariffs that were put on polysilicon, and sort of understanding that this is part of a larger ecosystem and looking for a larger solution is certainly an important element for SEIA. As we look at where those jobs would be lost, they would be lost all across this country. Lots of them here in the Midwest, which you can see. But it's certainly, sometimes if you spend time in Washington, you think the solar industry lives in California. It really doesn't. It really is all across the country. And that point I made in the video about manufacturing, as prices have gone down, manufacturing has risen. And so 38,000 Americans are here working in solar manufacturing. And I have a pretty map here about where those are all across the country. So that's how you can help. I'm happy to talk more about that. There's more process coming at the United States Trade Representative's office, but that's happening. That's an incredibly important and pretty dire situation that we're facing. The other thing that is actually happily not quite as dire, but still important, is what we call the other ITC. So the investment tax credit. I have said to my colleagues in other industries, imagine a world in which tax reform wasn't your most important priority at the moment, and that's the world I've lived in. But we have actually fared incredibly well. The Senate just released their tax bill today. This afternoon, they did not change anything about the investment tax credit. The timing, the phase out, the construction guidelines, the deductibility, it's all in there just like we wanted it. The House was 90% all in there. There were some commenced construction issues that we are working out, but we have a lot to celebrate on the tax reform side. And so it really goes to the hard work of our member companies and my staff who have been in those offices every single day over the last 2 years, making sure that happens. So if investment tax credit is important to you and important to your business, you should take a sigh of relief and then continue to lobby your legislators to make sure that nothing gets traded away at the last minute. So I think I have spoken for as long as I was invited to speak. So I want to thank you for your attention. I hope you understand that the solar industry stands ready, able, and willing to help grow this economy here in Michigan. We look excited to continue to partner with you. And you being utilities, you being regulators, you being other forms of technology to really create that integrated energy of our energy grid and energy future. And more importantly, I'm actually staying. My taxi doesn't come till 5 a.m., so I'll be here this evening if you have questions. I'm not doing Q&A right now, but I'm happy to chat and talk about whatever questions you might have about the solar industry, its growth, trade case, or tax reform. So thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you so much, Abby. We really appreciated your comments and also your leadership for the industry and look forward to working together. I think there's a lot of exciting times ahead. So now we turn to our awards, which is very exciting as well. And while we've been doing this for 5 years, we are the Innovation Business Council. And so I think it's really important for us all to remember that we need to keep change as our tradition. I invite you to take a look at the program and the previous awardees. I think it's kind of interesting to take a look at who's been here and who all that we've worked with. And I know Suniva is going to stand out to Abby there in 2014. So anyway, that's another story. But I'm excited to move over to our awards. So first, I'd like to invite up Brian Pajot of Foresight. And while Brian's coming up here, I told him I'd say something embarrassing. So he's walking really fast so that I can't stand here any longer with the microphone. Oh, he's going to wait for something embarrassing? Anyway, Brian Pajot, who's also an EIBC board member. So I really appreciate him being here tonight to present an award.
Thanks, Lisa. Hey everybody, mini commercial for EIBC. If you're not a member, you should be. This isn't the only thing that happens all year long amongst all of the policy impact. They run a bunch of other events throughout the year, and I know my team goes to a lot of them and has been greatly impacted by the events, but also just getting a chance to meet with each of you. Commercial over. I get to announce the Emerging Business of the Year Award. There were a bunch of nominees. Thanks for nominating folks, if you did. The winner this year, I got some great bullets from the staff to talk about, but you can reference the little write-up about Powerly on your own. I am going to read their mission from the website: to connect the smart grid to the smart home with the only utility-led home energy management solution developed for utilities worldwide. As an entrepreneur, been involved in a couple of startups, I think you need to have an appreciation for what they are trying to do. If you're sitting in front of venture capitalists asking for their money, and the pitch is, we're gonna create software where the customer is gonna be 150-year-old institutional organizations, and the software will actually end up making them sell less of their product. What do you think? Do you want to buy it? That is a tough pitch, and a little, oversimplified. But just what they are trying to do from a technological standpoint, connecting different utility infrastructure with all the different things going on in the home, is mind-boggling. But just the idea that they're going to sell something like that to utilities, to me, is pretty impressive. So without further ado, Powerly, would you guys come on up? Congratulations, you're the 2017 Emerging Business of the Year.
Well, thank you, Michigan Energy Innovation Business Council. All my colleagues at Powerly are extremely honored, excited, and thankful for getting this award. So Powerly was founded in 2015 and launched as a joint venture by DTE Energy with the vision, as Brian said, to bridge the smart grid to the smart home. So even though it's 150 years old, it's a new AMI infrastructure with the smart meters and digitization, which we are taking and converting them to start thinking from electrons to bits. And then, right here in the state of Michigan, with just an amazing team of people, partners that have helped us develop sponsorship from DTE and also the regulators, we've kind of built the most innovative energy efficiency solution in the world. So we are able to deliver sustainable behavioral change, which is 7 to 10 times more than traditional programs. And the way we do it is we allow the consumers to have real-time access to their energy consumption. And at the same time, we connect the energy consumption that's happening in the house to all the appliances and devices in the home, which is home automation. So we create that closed loop, which enables the consumer to make intelligent decisions to eliminate energy waste, reduce their carbon footprint, and align with our platform, which is home energy management. So Powerly right now is rapidly being deployed across North America, Canada, and soon around the world. And our hope is that the state of Michigan, that is known globally for horsepower, is soon going to be also known for smart power. And that's what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Ellison. I am state representative. Don't go away, guys. I got something for you. I'm the state representative from District 26, which includes the cities of Royal Oak and Madison Heights. I come to the State House after 13 years of being the mayor of the city of Royal Oak. One of the things we tried to do in the community was to refocus our purpose in the city to attract these types of businesses into our community. And Powerly has been with us in the city now for a couple of years.
Yes.
A couple of years now, and they're a great success, and we are very honored to have them in our community. I'm personally very honored to give them this tribute, which basically tells them how much we think of them. And my personal thank you for them for locating in Royal Oak and helping build South Oakland County.
Well, thank you so much.
So moving along, now I would like to invite up Carla Walker-Miller from Walker-Miller Energy Services to offer our next award, which is our Employer of the Year award. So I'm so thrilled. Carla is also on our board. She's a new addition to our board. She just joined us in June, and really appreciate her and appreciate her time and willingness to give of her expertise to our organization. So here's Carla.
Thank you, Lisa. For my opinion, which I'm always willing to give, requested or not, I want to start by giving a shout out to Abigail Ross Hope. Anyone, I can't read my own writing, is that Abigail Ross Harper? Forgive me. And anyone who stands up and talks about diversity in a room like that, you are my girl, okay? So diversity, inclusion, equity, we are all better off when we're informed by a bigger number of opinions. And I always like to say it's hard to promote movements. It's hard to promote national or global movements of any kind with people who look and dress and act just like you. So I am the president of the American Association of Blacks in Energy in Michigan. And Liesl and I have kind of been on a mission to help our groups have more events together, get to know each other, and diversify the input into renewable, alternative energy and innovation. And I'm committing to you that we're going to be a sponsor. Abe is going to be a sponsor of your events from here on out because it's good for everyone. So thank you again. And Valerie Brader, and one more shout out to Valerie Brader and the Public Service Commission for having not only the most woke group, an accessible group of energy people in the state in the history of the state regulatory ecosystem. You guys are so accessible now, and it wasn't always that way. And that's part of what we really need to bring us all to where we need to be to help Michigan's most vulnerable families. Now, what I'm here for. As our first fuel, energy efficiencies, where we help people and businesses save energy and save money. The Employer of the Year award is granted to a business with a permanent location and employees in Michigan. It's been in operation for at least 2 years and is supporting or expanding the growth of advanced energy. Clear Results was actually one of the first business partners that my company partnered with when we entered the energy efficiency services business in 2009. And one of the things you'll find is that we do learn from each other. And I call this co-opetition because we compete in some cases, and we cooperate, and it makes for a better, all of our companies better. This year we've had several worthy nominations, and of course, Clear Result is the winner. Nearly 200 Michigan employees throughout the state. They offer competitive pay, all types of incentives, and they encourage work-life balance. They hire locally, which is so important to Michigan families. And they know that a company thrives not only on the talent of the company, but individual efforts. We are really proud to present the award for Employer of the Year to Clear Result.
presenting this award. I want to also mention that we've got a tribute for Clear Result as well. And it is the most signed tribute of the evening. It's not presented, so unfortunately you get me instead of a legislator. But you have a lot of legislators. You have Rosemary Robinson, you've got Tom Casperson, you've got Ken Horn, Brian Kelly, the governor and the lieutenant governor, so that's wonderful. Bert Johnson, Senator Hertel, and Representative Sam Singh. Sam just got a promotion. I hope that Jack will let him know that I did that. But anyway, thank you and congratulations. Thank you. Oops.
It's such an honor to be here tonight on behalf of Clear Results and our team. Thank you very much to the Michigan EIBC. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, and I'm realizing that I also forgot to mention my nomination committee and the sponsorship committee that select the awardees. So the nominations come from our membership and then anyone who is a sponsor of the event this evening. And then we narrow that down through a series of questionnaires. And then the discussion happens, which is always great fun. We get on a phone call and run through all those questionnaires and talk about who do we think best exemplifies the category and is the best recipient of the award. And that is made up of folks that are sponsors of the evening tonight. So that's always a great opportunity to kind of talk through what's going on in the advanced energy industry in Michigan. So I want to also share my appreciation for those that join me on that phone call because it's always a whole lot of fun. So really appreciate that. So now we're going to move on to Business of the Year. So I'm going to invite Scott Visiana, board member of Ventower Industries. And Scott might be the longest serving board member of the three that have been up here tonight. Yep, so Scott and I have been doing this together for a long time. And so anyway, without further ado.
Thank you, Lisa. So good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's enjoying the night. And thank you. EIBC does a great job, and there was a few great plugs already. Brian really said it all there, I thought. So I'm here this evening to present Business of the Year Award. I'm with Ventower Industries, vice president there, and we are a steel fabricator. You may ask, how does the steel fabricator get into this place, into this event? But a lot of our products we make are very much so energy related, with our largest focus on wind turbine towers. Our corporate headquarters and our primary manufacturing facility is situated in Monroe. Met another Monrovian tonight. Good to see that here. And our industry, like others, is very much strongly influenced by policy. And we really think that for a smaller company like ours, the EIBC does a really great job to allow us to unite, get our voices heard here in Lansing, and work with other like-minded companies that really have true impact on policy. Valerie mentioned that as well, so I appreciate that. A lot of work done to make sure that we see some of the right things done here for energy generation in Michigan. So as an EIBC board member and a previous award recipient, I'm here tonight, as I mentioned, to honor Business of the Year. Granted to a business that has a permanent location here in Michigan, employees as well, and that has been in operation, as Carla mentioned, for a minimum of 2 years, supporting expanding the growth of advanced energy in Michigan. This year we had 8 nominations. Tough vote, I would say. And that winner this year, I'm happy to say, is Bedrock Detroit. And I can give a little blurb on them. I don't have my iPhone, but I do have the bullet points here. Bedrock is a full-service commercial real estate firm specializing in the strategic development of urban cores. Bedrock provides a full range of services with in-house teams for each area of expertise, including leasing, acquisition, finance, construction, architecture, historic rehab, which I genuinely have appreciation for that, and property management. Since Bedrock's inception, one of the company's strategic goals was to be a leader in energy and sustainable initiatives related to real estate development and property management. As such, Bedrock has added energy efficiency programs to essentially every facet of what they do. Bedrock is also a U.S. Department of Energy Star program corporate partner and the largest user of ChargePoint electric vehicle charging stations in the Midwest. A few Midwest largest I'm hearing tonight. So that's great. So with that said, I'd like to congratulate Bedrock Detroit and welcome them up to the stage.
All right, and we also have a tribute for Bedrock from Senator Young. So here is that as well.
Thank you. I'm extremely honored to accept this award on behalf of Bedrock. We are deeply proud of our ongoing energy sustainable initiatives and the innovation that our corporation continues to bring to the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan. And we couldn't be more excited to continue those programs moving forward. So thank you.
Great, and now we're on to the last but best, Public Official of the Year. What to say about Sally Tallberg? So, well, I guess I'll start off with, we had a long list for Public Official of the Year. I feel like I think there were like in the neighborhood of 7. But I have to tell you, when the awards committee talked through it, they settled very quickly on Sally. And I think there's a lot of reasons that they settled quickly on Sally. And I know that this is probably really embarrassing for her, so I'm kind of enjoying it, similar to what Valerie was saying earlier. And similar to what Valerie was saying earlier, she said like all my stuff too, so thanks a lot. But that's okay, that's okay. Because these things are true about Sally. So we all know that Sally is very detail-oriented. We all know that part of Sally's strength comes from her depth of policy. But another theme that we've really heard a lot of tonight, and I want to point out again, is that of collaboration. So we've heard a lot, we heard it from Abby, we heard it from Valerie, we've heard a lot about what we need to do to come together. And one of the things I like to say is it's important for us to start with the places where we agree and increase the circle out to where we disagree, because if we build those relationships first, we'll then do a better job of moving out to the more challenging topics. Sally is a great example of that. And it's not only from the challenges that she deals with at the Public Service Commission, because, you know, there's a few when it comes to energy legislation, but it's also the work that she has done with the management of the organization itself. So what I think is so impressive about Sally is it's not just being chairman of the Public Service Commission. It's also the relationships between the commissioners themselves, and it's the relationships between the commissioners and their staff to make them really well functioning. So an example of this was right after Sally took on the chairman's role, she was very focused internally first. So she said, look, we're going to work first on what we're doing internally. And she developed processes and worked with personnel to make things run much more efficiently at the Public Service Commission. A silly little thing is making the commission go paperless. Like, what a great idea. Why haven't we not done that before? And that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the reforms that she's implemented. I had an opportunity to talk to some friends at the national level, and I said, hey, I'm looking forward to presenting Sally with this award. What would you say about Chairman Tallberg? And they said that hands down, and I'm happy to tell you who this is later, but hands down, I'm not going to say publicly, she is the best commissioner in the nation, like the best. I will tell you who it is, but I just thought, I mean, right? Haven't even started talking to you about all the dockets and all the working groups and all the collaborations that are open at the Public Service Commission right now. So that's not even talking about all of that work on top as well. So, but without further ado, I don't want to embarrass her any further. So, Sally, really, really excited to offer you this award on behalf of the Michigan Energy Innovation Business Council. Tribute from Senator Hertel.
Public speaking is not my favorite thing, and especially when I'm embarrassed. This is reminiscent of my baby shower and wedding shower, where you just feel like, whoa, this is too much attention. I do have some prepared remarks. So first of all, Valerie
They're typed up people.
Did not lie about the 7 things that she went through as I was, just had taken the oath for this commissioner spot about 4.5 years ago, and it was my dream job. I, early in my career, worked at a utility commission in the state of Texas and thought, I want to do that job. And so, but she just, the energy and intelligence that she brings as a partner at the Michigan Agency for Energy, and I would say, to kind of coin a phrase from the governor, the relentlessly positive defender of the commission. We have our proceedings, we base it on the record and the law, but after we issue decisions, I know Valerie's always been there to kind of back us up, even when we're in the a lot of controversy from time to time. So I appreciate that and just your friendship. And Liesl, I love collaborating with you with a nice banh mi sandwich at the corner barbecue Vietnamese fusion restaurant in Lansing. So we appreciate your partnership and the involvement in all the proceedings. The Michigan Michigan Energy Innovation Business Council has been really instrumental in raising issues both at the policy level and in the regulatory forums at the commission. So thank you. I really feel like this is just an acknowledgement of the work that's been done, and if we had 140 or so awards to give to the commission staff, I think that's really who's deserving of this award this past year. It's been quite a ride since the legislature enacted Public Acts 341 and 342 into law and the governor signed into law last December. Our staff hit the ground running from day one, kind of mapping out the implementation strategy and really trying to engage stakeholders in the important decisions that were made. And for a regulatory body like the commission, we really value having the guidance from the legislature. We're creatures of statute, but I think it was positioned in a way to allow the commission to work with a lot of diverse stakeholders and figure out these really complex issues. So I appreciate the confidence that the legislature and the governor had in the commission and our processes to make informed decisions on these important issues that I think are going to be really critical to dealing with, integrating emerging technologies into our energy future. And I think the future is so bright for Michigan. We have just a lot of change happening and trying to manage that. But I think this legislation gives us a blueprint on how to go about doing that the right way. So just want to again stress the work of our staff. We have a talented group, accountants, engineers, attorneys that they really inspire me from every day coming into the office and working through the issues. And I want to give special recognition to a few of the staff. Mike Byrne is here. I blame him for the legislation when I'm like pulling my hair out, trying to figure out like, what were you thinking? But he was involved all along for years working on the legislation and now is kind of overseeing the implementation efforts, and really just appreciate his leadership in that area. Also, Darrell Slaughter. Where are you, Darrell? I think he had to leave. He's so busy. It's really a interesting situation when you have to coach someone to not work so much and learn how to say no. Darrell is an incredible individual and contributor to our leadership team at the commission and helping just keep us organized. And so I really appreciate his work as well. Paul Proudfoot, I wouldn't be here without you, Paul. Paul was on the interview team when I joined the MPSC staff and asked me a question about heteroscedasticity and how I would deal with it. They thought I could be a load forecaster, and still ended up, they hired me even though I didn't know the answer to that question. So Paul is a tremendous mentor to a lot of our staff. I think they look to him, even if they know the answer. I think there's tremendous confidence that Paul instills in them because he's been around. He's been around for a long time and worked through these issues. So we're just delighted to have his leadership as well. And I have to say, my two colleagues on the commission, I've worked either as an advisor to commissioners on the staff or as a commissioner with a lot of other individuals, and I am just truly blessed to have two phenomenal colleagues. Rachel Eubanks is here tonight with an amazing financial mind, commitment to public service, engagement with the staff, just really an unbelievable individual that has been tremendous for our commission. And also Commissioner Norm Sari, who couldn't be here tonight, but he is a mentor and smart, engaged. The guy reads. We just have reams and reams of paper, and I feel like he's always read all of the information and very, very engaged and hardworking. So we're very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to work with them, and I feel like this award, represents kind of our collective work. So thank you again. Enjoy your evening. This is a tremendous honor.
So I knew Sally was a good choice for chairman because she and I had a conversation when she was a commissioner, and it was during the Clean Power Plan time, and she was traveling a bunch, and I said, oh, you're traveling all this time. She's like, oh, no, it's great. I'm on the airplane so I can read the Clean Power Plan, because anybody in our industry who doesn't actually read the plan is crazy. And I mean, I think that's just a great example of Sally, and I appreciate that. So, because I agree. So thank you so much, Sally, for your comments. Really appreciate it, and appreciate always working with you. I was reflecting on when Sally's been at our events, and I couldn't come up with an event you hadn't been at. She gave opening comments last year at the Gala. She does annual member meeting every spring. We've had a great run of conversations with our friends at the utilities, the utility leaders, so it's been fantastic. So anyway, appreciate it. I just want to close by saying thank you again so much to all of you for being here, to our sponsors for just a wonderful evening, and most importantly to our members and to our board members for all of the time that you spend on the organization and for all of the counsel that you give to me, and to our staff as we work through this time together as a team. So really appreciate the opportunity, really appreciate the commitment to the organization. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight to honor our awardees, and also to have a chance to celebrate the organization and to support for our big fundraiser. So really appreciate all of you being here. Before I let you go, I would like to ask if board members can join us over here. We'd like to do a board picture before everybody gets going. So thanks again. Really appreciate having you all here tonight, and have a safe trip home. We look forward to seeing you April 30th for the annual member meeting back here at Kellogg. Thanks.